is that when it comes to filmmaking generally, anything you want to do with filmmaking, the first thing is actually the story. You have the story, then after the story, you have the script. Then it is after you have the script, then that is when you now say, okay, let us call the person that will shoot for us. Let us call the person that will direct. Let us call the person that will do the makeup for us and every other thing. So the story is the main thing. The story is actually the main thing. And then I discovered that a lot of people always have challenges when it comes to writing stories. You see, many people will say, I don't know how to write story, I don't know how to go about story. Please tell them. So one thing I always say is that the fact that you don't know how to write a story is a story on its own. You can just pick your pen and start writing. Okay, my name is Abigail, and I want to write a story, and I don't know the type of story that I should write. Okay, so today I want to start writing about the story of Jesus, because Jesus Christ is the King of Kings. Jesus Christ is the Lord of Lords. He came to the earth to die for us. You've already started writing something. So, as much as possible, one thing that we should know is that anything that God is dropping in you is a story. And another thing that I also want to say is story happens everywhere. We're still going to be talking about story and the act of storytelling and other stuff, but what I'm just saying, I'm just trying to give us a background information to all these things. Now, for you to know how to write or develop a story, there is something I always see, and that is the first thing that we must know is that stories happen because somebody wants something, and that person has trouble getting it. I will repeat that again. Stories happen because somebody wants something and has trouble getting it. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that if you look at any of the stories that you've read, or any of the movies that you've seen, or any of these things that you've seen, you will discover that there is always somebody in that story, and that somebody wants something, and that same somebody has trouble getting it. So it is much more like three things that is needed. Stories happen because somebody wants something and has and has trouble getting it. So it is like the three things that you need to know. Three things that you need to know in everything that you are doing. Before you will have a story, there must be somebody. And then this somebody will want something. And then this something, there will always be problem getting it. If you look at any story that you see, maybe a story of somebody that is looking for a job, if you really want to write that story very well, that person will have trouble getting that job, because that is where the story lies. That is where you will have conflict. That is where you will have suspense. Those are the things that will drive the plot of the story. So anytime you want to write anything, anytime you want to write a story, always know that this story you want to write, there must be somebody there, and that somebody must want something, and that somebody must have a trouble getting it, because that's the basis of developing a story. Now let us break down what I said. Now let us break them down in pieces. Now if you want to break them down in pieces, we have three things there. The first one is the somebody. So now this somebody gives you a character. And what do we mean by a character? A character is the person these are the people who are playing a particular role. Maybe someone playing a role of father, or another person playing the role of mother, or playing the role of child 1, child 2, children, a principal of a school, or headmistress, or a bad boy, or a good boy, or a good girl, or a bad girl. All these things, their character. So the somebody gives you a character. And when we are talking about character, we are not just talking about the name alone. No. The name is part of it. We are also talking about a person in a specific place at a specific time, living a specific life. This somebody in your story is going to give you a character. And when we are talking about character, the character is what is not just a name. You know, when it comes to a name now, you can just mention the name of a character. You can say the name of a character is Dele, Bipe, Cynthia, Sandra. You can just mention the name, like you can mention the name of say Saratu, Rahila, or all those stuff. You can just mention him. No, but the somebody is not just what? It's not just a name, but a person living in a specific place. And when we talk about a specific place, we will say that, okay, where is this person living at this particular time? Then we will say that, okay, this person is living in Zaria. And what is this specific time? You can say, okay, it is living, this person that is living in Zaria is living in the 21st century. And is what? Is also living a specific life. That is what will keep you moving on. That is what will make you what will keep you moving on. So, as much as possible, it is what they want something that will drive what? That will drive the story. Imagine a story of someone who is not just, you don't want something, you don't need anything, and all those stuff. So imagine, and so now, what I'm trying to say in essence is that the want something gives you a goal. That is what the story question. What is the story all about? This story that you are writing, what is it all about? So when you want to write a story, you must first know that what? Establish what? The character, the somebody. So after establishing the somebody, the next thing is what? Is the want something. So this want something is what is the story question, the goal. What is it all about? What is it that you want to do? What is it what? What is it all about? Sometimes this can be an opportunity to do something that the character wants. You know, you see some message, some movies or some stories, it could be to deliver a message. And they want to go and deliver a message to Saratu in Zaria. Or it could be to travel, or to find a passion, or to find what a future partner, and so on. So what? There are so many things that can serve as your story question. And also, when we talk about the want something, it can also be what? It can also be like there is a dilemma that is forced on the character. For example, it could be to flee an attack from home, it could be to escape the stalker, or to survive a negative plot. So the want something now is what? It is the goal. When you are writing your story, you must look at what you want to write. What is the goal of this story? This story that I want to write, what is the essence? What is the goal of this story? Why am I writing this story this time? Why am I writing this story this time? You must what? You must what? You must know the story, because that is what will drive what you are writing. That is what will drive whatever you are doing. That is what will drive it. So as much as possible, you must make sure that your story is driven by something. If there is nothing that is driving your story, then you are just playing. And as Christians, we must what? We must make sure that whenever we are writing our story, there must be something crucial, something key that is driving our story. And I want to encourage us, when you are writing, I want to encourage us, your story must be such that carries a message of regeneration, revival, restoration, spiritual enlightenment, and all these things put together. So there must what? There must be what? A goal. And after that now, the next thing you must know in the sentence I made earlier is that what? Has trouble getting it. That is what? The conflict. As much as possible, when you are writing a story, make sure that there is conflict there. And I'm going to give us an example of a story very soon, and you will see how beautiful the story is. But before then, let me explain this third aspect. When you are writing your story, the more conflicts you have, the more your story will be tight. The more people who are reading your story will be at the edge. The more people who are watching the movie, when that story is being converted in a screenplay and they are now seeing it as a movie, the more they will be at the edge of their seat. So conflict is like the act of the story. Conflict is what drives the story. Okay, I said go drive the story, but conflict, it what makes it interesting. Because life that we are into, life itself is full of conflicts, is full of ups and downs. Now, let us look at this illustration that I always use when I'm talking about conflict. Now, let's look at this illustration, for example. Now, there is someone now, a particular brother. Let's say the name of the brother is Joshua, and that brother has been trusting God for the future partner. He has been trusting God for the future partner and all those stuff. So now, the brother went to prayer mountain. He went to pray. So as he was on the prayer mountain, he was praying, "Oh God, that is the sin one. Oh God, give me the bone of my bone. Give me the flesh of my flesh. I need the bone of my bone. Give me the flesh of my flesh." And then, as the brother was leaving that prayer mountain, as he was coming down, the next thing is that he met a sister. And he was discussing with that sister, the next thing is that they exchanged number. And then the next thing we saw both of them in eatery. They started eating. And then the next thing is that both of them are in the parents' house, in their parents' house. The sister came to greet the parent of the brother. Then the next thing is that they are both in the pastor's office. And then the thing here is that they are now in the engagement day, on the engagement day. And then the next thing we see is that after the engagement, the wedding, and then we see that on the screen, then they live happily ever after. Now, if you are reading that kind of story, won't you be like, what is doing this person now? What's doing this storyteller? There is no conflict. There is nothing. Everything is just straight like that. That is telling you that conflict is what is. It is one of the core things when we are talking about developing a story. Imagine that brother at first, when that brother was praying on the prayer mountain, as he was praying, he just knocked his head on the rock. Blood started rushing out. Then it will start getting interesting. It will get interesting from there. Everybody started rushing up and down. Not those that have been fasting and praying on the prayer mountain. Everybody started rushing up and down. And those that have been fasting, as they were rushing, another person fell. And they started pouring water on that person again. They started calling hospital, and eventually they rushed the brother to the hospital. When they got to the hospital, there is no electricity, there is no light. And because there's no light, and when there's no light, there is also no doctor available, there is no nurse available. The only people that is available is just only these people that used to sweep the ward. They will start making calls to reach the doctor. Then the number of the doctor is not going. Then maybe one nurse will just come that just started work maybe last week, or someone that is just doing one auxiliary nurse, and then that person will now inject the brother again with another thing. So when you see that as it is going, it's getting more interesting. So that is how it should be. Conflict, as trouble getting it gives you the conflict. It provides the obstacles that must be overcome to achieve their goal. Before a brother that has been trusting God for the future partner will achieve that goal, that person must go through obstacles. Other sisters or other sisters must show him shege. And he himself probably must, along the line, didn't wait on God enough to hear properly what God is saying. So, in essence, what I'm just trying to say, in this place, is that as much as possible, it is very good not to just make your story a straightforward like that, a straightforward one like that. When it comes to your character, pursuing that goal of want something, you must have trouble getting it. Which is what the main thing. So your basic storyline will force you to make a clear decision on somebody wants something and has trouble getting it. So when you are looking at your story next, you must look at your story and ask yourself, who is the somebody in this story? Who is the somebody in this story? What did this person in this story, what is the need of this person want? Because all this, we force the person to what? To bring out what? Something that is beautiful. All this, we make the person what? To bring out something that what? That is beautiful. Okay? Alright. So that is more like also another addition of when we're talking about introduction part 2. Storytelling is an act of crafting and sharing narrative that will engage people on an emotional and intellectual level. And then because of this class, I will not really be boring us with so much when it comes to storytelling and others. But I just quickly want to say one thing, is that when we talk about storytelling, one of the things storytelling will do is that it will bring an emotional connection. There's always this emotional connection when people are telling a story. You see, it is one of the significant powers of storytelling, because it allows people to connect on an emotional level. It allows people to connect on a deeper level. That is one of the power of storytelling. Say, for example, now when people hear story, there is a part of them that will be open up. They say, okay, story. Once upon a time, there is someone who lived in a particular century. Just something like that. It will connect with the audience. That's one of the power of storytelling. Another power of storytelling is that it serves as a powerful tool for education and also for learning. It serves as another thing for cultural preservation and identity formation. But now, one thing I want us to talk about now is how can we relate all these together? What are the core things that we need? If you want to write your story, you want to write screenplay, you want to do all these things, what are the major things that we need? And I'm going to be saying all these with some questions. I'm going to be saying all these with what? With some questions, because those are the things that we need for this class. Those are the core things that we need as we move on. Now, I call these the golden questions. When you want to write a story, when you want to write a screenplay or a movie, when you must there are some golden questions that you must ask yourself. And I'm going to be starting with the first one. I call that, what is your story about? That is the first golden question you must ask yourself. What is your story all about? That is the question. I call it the golden question. Golden questions. What is your story all about? Is the first thing that you must know. What is your story all about? Is your story about a message of regeneration? Is it about a message of revival, a message of spiritual enlightenment, a message of hope? You must be able to know what your story is all about. It is very, very important. And when you have this, let's say, for example, you have maybe a message that is talking about hope or enlightenment or something like that. Now, the next thing you must then know is, what is the genre? And when we're talking about the genre, G-E-N-R-E, is it comedy? Is it thriller? Is it drama? You must know all these things. And how do you know the genre of your story? How do you know the genre of your screenplay? There are a lot of things that you can use to know it, and there is a formula for it. Now, this is the formula. The story plus the plot and the character and the setting will give you the genre of your play. I'm going to repeat that. I said what? The story, the plot, the character, and the setting will give you the genre of your story. Now, your story could be a comedy, it could be thriller, it could be drama. I'm not talking about comedy like all these comedy skits. So that's not what I'm trying to talk about here. I'm just talking about just the genre. Okay. All right. So now, the formula through which you can use to know, okay, is what is the story. Let's say, for example, now the story is an action one. The plot is such that is moving from one place to another, from prison to the police station, to this, to that, it's moving like that, and then the setting is such also, then you will know that, okay, this is what, maybe a thriller. Now, most of our movies, when we come to Christian drama, most of our movies are always drama. Because you have maybe a family drama, like most of the movies of Mommy Gloria Bamiloye. You discover most of our movies are about their family dramas. Then, like there's that Lola My Bamiloye now. Most of his own stories are always where it has to do with the youth and the teenagers. Yes, but they are always drama. The one we can say that is maybe an action one that falls in the action part is maybe Land of Fury. Land of Fury, the one NCCF, I think KB State did with Mount Zion and everything. Okay, so now, these are the questions that you must ask yourself. What is the question about? What is the question about? Then another important question that you must ask yourself when you are writing your stories: what is the mood of the film? What is the mood of the film is very, very important. Is it a sad mood? Is it comic? Is it mysterious? Is it tense? Is it frightening? Is very, very very, very important. Say, for example, now, I don't know if how many of us have seen this movie, Shackles. Just Shackles now, for example, now is mysterious, is tense. Now, when it comes to a particular aspect of Abejoye, you can see that it has some comic aspects. At the same time, it also has some mysterious aspects too, and frightening aspects. So, the mood per time must depend on the message that you are trying to pass across. The mood must depend on on the message that you are trying to pass across. Then another golden question that you must also ask yourself is what time period does the film cover, or your story? I say film, you can say story. What time period does the film cover? That is also another golden question that you can ask yourself. Is it just a day? Is it a month? Is it a year? Many years or centuries? Because there are different movies. You see, you can watch a whole movie. In fact, part 1, part 2, part 3, that everything that will happen in that place will just happen in one day. Because a lot of things can happen in one day. It depends on how you are able to tell your story and weave in some conflict around it. You know, I said something earlier. I said stories happen because somebody wants something and has trouble getting it. You can set up a story of somebody who is leaving Zaria and then going to Lagos to go and get some goods in Lagos. And that person is carrying money, and then the journey is not just 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, or 5 hours journey. I think the journey should be some maybe 12, 15 hours journey, thereabout. So that still falls within a day. So you can tell the story of that person leaving home, going. A lot of things can happen on the road. You can push in a whole lot of conflict on the road. A whole lot of things. The money he wants to go and use to buy the stuff, some things can happen to it. Armed robbers, kidnappers, a whole lot can happen in a day. So when you are writing your story, you need to ask yourself the question: what time period does this film cover? Is it a day? Is it a month? Is it a year? Many years? And then, would it matter if you change the time period? Would it matter if you change the time period? Now, you know, we were talking about somebody the other time, and this is where you need to ask yourself the question. This is where you need to ask yourself the question of who is the main character. That is the protagonist. The protagonist is the main one, is the one we always root out for, the one you always like. And then the antagonist, I'm just giving us just small English so that we can easily understand it. The antagonist is more like the one we see as the bad guy. You know, when you are looking at it, when you are watching a film, you see the actor and the boss. The actor is doing good, trying to save people. Then you see the antagonist, the bad one now, is trying to stop the other one. There must, in a complete story, there must be some things that would stop your character from achieving their goal. There must be something that is stopping the character from achieving their goal. And can I also tell you that this antagonist can in fact even be an animal? Your protagonist can even be an animal. So character is not only just somebody, it can be animals too. And that's why you see most of these American films, they play with all these things a lot when they are doing their movies and other stuff. But for us in this part of the world, we just have humans to walk around with. We've not grown to the aspect of taming animals, controlling them, speaking to them, and all those stuff. But it is good for us to know that our protagonist and antagonist can also be Can also be animals. So you need to ask yourself, in this story that I want to write, who is the main character? When you know all this, it will help you. It will help the way that you are telling the story. Another question you must also ask yourself is, in what order do you want to tell the story? Which is the number 6 now. This should be the number 6 now. The number 6 now. You also ask yourself, in what order are you going to tell your story? You know, there are some stories that you would see, you will start from the beginning, and then it starts like that, sequentially. One event is linking to another, and one event, or in the sequence of time. Then there are also stories that you might have read, or movies that you have seen, that they will be doing flashback. At every small thing like this, they will do flashback. They will come again, they will do flashback. Go again, they will do flashback. Those are the things that you need to know. You need to ask yourself, how are you going to tell your stories? And then when you ask yourself this, the next one is, how many locations do you need? You see, before you set out to start writing your stories, when you have all this information, is really going to help you. How many locations do you need to illustrate this time period? Do you need them all, and why? Why do you need all this? Why do you need all these things to tell your story? Now, the interesting part is this. What conflicts are there in your story? I'm still going to be sharing with us 3 more questions. 3 more questions. Now, the third to the last now is, what conflicts are there in your story? Because it is the conflict that will move the story forward. A story without a conflict is just going to be a flat story. A story it's just like a life. You see, a lot of us, we go to church, we pray, God do this for me. After God do that thing, after you have answer to that prayer, another thing will still come up again. That is life. Conflict is part of life. You want to wash clothes, there is no detergent. You want to iron, there is no light, there is no power supply to do that. Then you want to go out, there is no TFE. You even have TFE, or you have money to buy fuel, there is no fuel. All these things are part of the life. So what conflicts are there in your story? What do your characters want, and what obstacles are you going to give them? That is another important and interesting thing that you must also look at. Then also, the second to the last question I will also be asking is, how are your major characters going to overcome these obstacles and reach their goals? You see, when you push obstacles to your characters, you must also at least tell us how they are able to overcome the obstacles. Because those who will read your story, or if the story is being converted into a screenplay and then as a movie, they must be able to see how, because they want to learn from it. They want to learn from it. So how are your major characters going to overcome these obstacles to reach their goal is a very important question that need answer. And then the last question that I will also be doing before I move to another interesting part in what I'll be discussing today is, do you need a subplot, or do you have a subplot? What I mean by that is just a minor plot that relates in some way to the main plot. Say, for example, someone who has been trusting God, just like that story I said earlier. Someone has been trusting God for for thought of maybe a particular lady that she had had a relationship with before, and then something came, they had issues, and something just relate it somehow to also drive the story along in a way to also pass additional messages. And when you are doing all these, some stories can have more than one, some can have more than 2, 3, but make sure that at the end of your story there is what? There is a resolution to it all. Make sure that at the end there is what? There is a resolution to it all. So now let us go to how to develop it. Is for you to have an outline. An outline. You know, when people say, I don't know how to go about this story. I have this story in my head. I don't know how to write it. I don't know how to go about it. Now, this is what we want to share now is an answer to it. And the first thing that you must do is it is very, very good to have what? To have an outline. An outline is just like a very, very short story. That thing that is just that idea that is coming to your head, just write it down. It's just like a map. It helps you to clearly summarize your story. It's just like a map. Write it down. So when you write your outline down, it will help you to find the head and the heart of your story. It is always better to write it down than just still having it in your head. Just write it down as it's just coming. Now, there's something called an outline, and then there's another thing called the step outline. Now, there is difference to that. The first one I'm talking about first is what? Is the outline. Is what? It is the outline. That is the first thing that you need to do when you are what? When you want to write a story. So an outline is what? It's like a very short story. Mr. Adebayo goes to Okiniko, he do this, and when he gets to the house, he's going to meet the wife, and when he meets the wife is going to come out and then slap him. And when the wife slaps him, the wife is going to say, "Where are you coming from? You did not tell me that you will not be around." And so when they get there, they fought, and after fighting, they went ahead to go and meet their pastor, and after, just write it, something short, just write everything like that. However is coming to your head, just put it down. That is what? That is an outline. Then now, the next thing to now do after having your outline is what we now call the step outline. You know, when you now have your outline now, you now want to break it down. And breaking it down now is what I call what? The step outline. And what do we mean by step outline? The step outline is what? Is basically what? A scene by scene breakdown of your story. You see, after you've been able to put everything together, push everything together just like in the short story form, the next thing you're doing now is what? You are now bringing everything together scene by scene, pushing everything what? Scene by scene. So as much as possible, it helps you to what? It's like the skeleton of your script. But one thing that you must know here is, in fact, when you are done writing your step outline, when you want to start writing the main script yourself, your scene 2 can eventually go to scene 8, and your scene 9 can come to scene 10, and scene 20 can even be your scene 1. So, but a step outline will help you what? To see it break down. It's like the skeleton. Before we have all this flesh, what is making all this, our hands, our legs, all our bodies to move, is because there's a skeleton. It's just like the skeleton, the framework that is helping us to move. So it is a skeleton for what? For our script. So if it's a story you are writing and you have a chapter by chapter breakdown of it, it will also help you. It will what? It will also help. So it is always good to have what? A breakdown. That is what? That is the next step. After you've been able to answer all those questions that I asked earlier, which are what the coding questions needed, then you move to the outline, you move to the step outline. Then there's something also that is called what? Is called synopsis. Because most times people confuse the synopsis with an outline because it is also a summary of your story. But synopsis is just like something concise and intriguing, something that will make people want to read what you are. An outline can be more, but when it comes to synopsis, it's just something very, very, very short that it will show us the hero, that is the protagonist, the villain, that is the antagonist. They will be clearly defined. But with outline, everything is just coming. You're just putting them down as it is coming like that. But with synopsis, it will guide you. And most of the times, for synopsis, it's just like it's always like a selling point. So the synopsis is just more like a selling point of either your book or your novel or your story or your script. Then when you're not through with this, the next phase is also when at that step outline phase, there are now some additional questions that you now need to ask yourself again. Because it is at that point you may now start writing. Maybe you want to start writing, you have your scene, now want to start writing, or you want to start putting one or two things together and everything. Then you need to now ask yourself a very good question. Because every time you write a scene, there are some questions you must ask yourself. Every time you write a scene, there are some questions you must ask yourself. The first question is, who need to be in this scene and why? You see, as storytellers, we need to be questioned. We need to always ask questions. Because question begs answers. If you don't ask questions, you will not be able to. You won't have answers to your matter. So every time you write a scene, ask yourself this question: who need to be in this scene and why? Ask yourself the question: why do I need this set? Why do I need to set this scene in this location? Okay, the husband and the wife, they are talking. Why do they need to be in the sitting room? Why do they need to be in the bedroom? Can they say the same thing they are saying? Can they say it in the kitchen? This same line that they want to say, can they say it in the compound? Don't let me just be boring my readers or my viewers with bedroom scene. Can I move this and even say, okay, this, they are married, they are couples, but can they have this scene in the car? So you need to also ask yourself the question: who need to be in this scene and why? Why do I need to set this scene in this location? What is the most surprising thing that could happen in this scene? That's suspense. Always give your readers something enticing, something interesting. And then moving on, you ask, is this scene moving the story forward? I've seen a lot of movies and I ask myself, what is the essence of this scene? Say, for example, now, someone is going to his house. He just finished from work and he's going to his house. And then you see a particular scene. He comes out from the office. He walks through the compound. Nothing happened to him. It's not that someone is looking at him. Then from the compound, he enters into the car. It's not that something will happen inside the car. It's not that there's somebody waiting for him inside the car. He entered the car. Then at the end, he started driving. Road 1, road 2, road 3. He moved to the express. He moved to the highway. Then from there, he now got back to another bush. He moved. Nothing happened to him. Then he got home. Nothing happened to him. Then you now need to ask yourself, what is the essence of that scene? Because in reality, if nothing is happening to him, then why do you need those scenes? Is it so that your short movie or your full-length movie will be long? But let's assume that as he is moving, there is something happening at home. And the people that are at home must not meet him. Then that would now increase our curiosity. This father that is coming must not meet these children at home doing this kind of a thing. That will increase the curiosity. So you need what? You need what? To ask yourself that very, very important question. Then every time you also write a scene, ask yourself another question again. And this question is this. Ask yourself that, what symbols am I using to show the inner life of my character? What symbols am I using to show the inner life of my character? For example now, when you see a character and you see maybe a cross on his neck, or there is a Bible beside him, you know that, maybe this person is a believer. Or you see a trumpet beside the bed, or you see a guitar, you know, okay, this person must be a musician, and all those things. So symbols what are very, very important. So every time you write a scene, ask yourself the question, what symbols am I using to show what? To show the inner life of my character or their characters. Say, for example, you have a particular character, is always holding this, these people that drink, they have this short drink that they used to hold in their hand. This is just something short like that, maybe like it does have like a drink or something like that. Then you ask yourself, okay, maybe that one is telling about about the life of this character, or just something like that. But as storytellers, as script writers, you must ask questions. Because question will help you to be a better version in what you are writing. So every time you write a scene, actually, you know why you are asking yourself question concerning the scene now is because you now have the step outline of it. So you then ask yourself a question again, that what is the essential action that you need for each scene? What is the minimum information you need us to know for the scene? You know, for example, now you are writing a story, and in your scene 1, you've said all that you wanted to say in the story. No. You must be able to know that, okay, this is the message I want to pass across this time. Then you delay some information also. You will not share everything for us, so that the readers or the audience will not know all that you are sharing at once. Okay? All right. So that is those are the things that you need to what you need to know when it comes to what when it comes to sharing what to writing your scenes. You need what those information when you are writing your scenes. Okay. So the other aspect I want to now pick now, which is another thing I want to talk about, is how to make your dialogue real. You know, when some people may have the story, they may know the outline, but when that comes to writing it, they don't know how to write dialogues. I don't know how to write dialogues. I don't know how to put dialogues in the story. I don't know I don't know how to put dialogues in my character, and what would he be saying, and all those stuff. But one thing I always say is that your character is just someone, is human being. The dialogue should sound real. And when we are talking about the dialogue sounding real, it is important to also know that real people don't talk in formal or complete sentence. Say, for example, now if you go to a market now, for example, and then people are talking, say, how much are you selling this thing? He will pick that thing, and then he will show the woman. Maybe what he is showing that woman is bread. Say, Mama, how much are you selling this thing? How much are you selling this bread? But if you now want to write that thing, you now go ahead and say, good morning, Mama. How are you, Mama? How are you? How is everything? Please, how much are you selling this bread? How much is the cost? You know, it's different now. In real life, the way people talk, especially when it comes to friends, you know, my friend, Padi, how now? How are you doing? They won't start talking in a formal way or everything. So when you are writing your dialogue, as much as possible, make it real. Let your dialogues to be real. Make your dialogue effective. And what do we mean by making dialogue effective? It means that you reveal the tone of your character's personality by showing what motivates them. Like, for example, now when I'm talking now, there's a particular word. There's a particular word I always use very well. Say, for example, when I'm talking, I say, okay, spiritic or something. I use those words a lot very well. And when people want to talk sometimes or to refer to me, they say spiritic, spiritic, and all those, so just something like that. Now, when you have your own characters too, you can make some words particular to a particular character. If, for example, now in Abejoye now, there's a character called Jemu or something like that. Anytime you want to say something, you say, in Yoruba you say ibi t'Ọlọ́run ò sí èèyàn, ibi téèyàn ò sí Ọlọ́run wà ńbẹ̀ o. Anywhere we don't have humans, God is everywhere. It's just anytime you want to make any dialogue, he will start with that. He's actually doing it in a cunning way, but that is just his own style. So you can make a particular word, a particular style for some of your characters, so that when they say something, then we'll know that okay, this person saying so and so. Okay, all right. Then another thing is what? Avoid on the nose dialogue. Avoid on the nose dialogue. And what do I mean by that? So don't on the nose dialogue is just like overstated dialogues. There are some things you don't need to just be saying. Avoid what? Avoid on the nose dialogue. Okay. All right. It's just like overstating a dialogue. I just pushed out 2 examples for us now. When you are on the nose dialogue is just dialogues that you are just pushing out unnecessary informations that we don't need. Bad dialogue, overstated dialogues. And then there's also another one that is very, very important, which I really want to talk about, is the feeder lines. Avoid feeder lines. What do I mean by feeder lines? Is let me put it for us first, then I will now explain what I mean by feeder lines. Let's say, for example, we have 2 people talking, and then we have Ade. I pushed an example on the page, but let's use Ade and maybe another person, and then one would say, "You never guess where I saw P2." The other one will say where. Then the first person will say in Sam's office. Then another one will say, "I wonder what he was doing there." Then the other one will say, "Working on a new project." Then the other person will say, "What type of project?" And then this one will say, "The project of the writing project." Then this one will say, "Oh, is it the writing project of Mr. So and so?" Then this one too will now reply and say, "Yes, it is the writing project of Mr. So and so." I will now reply again, "Do you know about that project?" This one will say, "Yes, I know about that project." They are just feeding themselves. They are not communicating. So as much as possible, it is good to avoid feeder lines. Then another thing that you should also avoid is when you are writing, especially if it is script that you are writing, make sure that you are not writing with camera angles. You are now saying close-up shot of the head, and then we now move to the extreme wide shot, and then we now come back to the middle shot of so and so. Okay, so as much as possible, you have to be very creative in your use of words. And what better way can you be creative is, I always tell anyone that wants to be a very good storyteller must be a good reader. You have to be what? A good reader. Read as many as you can, and then write as many as you can. The more you read, the more you get better. You know what I'm trying to say? The more you read, the more you get better. And then the more you write, the more you also get better. So reading and writing is very, very essential, because as storytellers, we have the power to call what is not as though they were, because we are writers. And do you know that they always say this thing? They say what? Readers are leaders. I believe you've had that before. They will say readers are leaders. Now, one thing that we should also know is that what? Writers are leaders' leader. Do you get that? Readers are leaders, but writers, they are leaders' leader. And what do we mean by that? Because it is a writer who wrote what a reader read that made him to be a leader. So if you now want to be a writer, a storyteller, a script writer, a story writer, a screenplay, you want to be all this, you must
Now what? You must now read extensively and then write too. If you don't know what to write, just like I said earlier, start by writing that you don't know what to write, and then trust Holy Spirit to help you to continue writing. And then the life is so much that there are so many things that we can write about. How you wake up is something. How there is no water to bathe is something you can write about. It's a story on its own, because man itself is a story. You live, you wake up one day, you do everything you are doing is what? Is a story. So as much as possible, let us what? With all this, I believe that we can do something. When you ask yourself important and crucial and key questions, it will guide you and inform you how to go about some things. So ask yourself golden questions, and then when you ask yourself golden questions, it will help you to what? To move on. It will help you to write something that is better. And don't forget where we started from. We started from what? From a very simple sentence. That is what? Stories happen because somebody wants something and that person has trouble getting it. So you yourself can also give yourself an assignment in that aspect. What is that thing that you have trouble getting? It's a story. You can write around it. Bring out a message from it. Maybe a message of patience, a message of long suffering, a message of hope, a message of dedication, discipline, determination. You can bring out a message from it, and before you know it, you are through with one story. You are through with the second story. You are through with the third story, and then it continues like that. Thank you very much. I believe that you've been blessed with this short 1 hour class.